Good evening and welcome to the Orbital Times. Tonight we're diving into the real impact of tariffs, meant to protect American industry but often producing the opposite effect. For some of our most iconic companies, tariffs and retaliatory tariffs have created a tough, sometimes hostile, business environment. These policies, intended to boost U.S. manufacturing, are sometimes forcing companies to look overseas, taking jobs and investment with them. The ripple effects are felt nationwide, raising tough questions about the true cost of these trade policies. We'll examine 5 household names and the challenges they face, unpacking the real consequences for American workers. Let's kick off the countdown and get the facts. Our countdown begins with Ford Motor Company, a symbol of American manufacturing. Tariffs on steel and aluminum were meant to protect domestic producers, but for Ford, they brought a billion-dollar hit to profits. That loss wasn't just numbers. It meant less investment in electric vehicles, R&D, and U.S. factories. The increased cost of raw materials put Ford at a disadvantage, even as the policy aimed to help American steelmakers. Ford canceled plans to import the Focus Active from China, citing tariffs that made it unprofitable. The broader financial strain led to thousands of job cuts and a major corporate restructuring. With rising costs at home, Ford began looking abroad for more affordable production options, contradicting the policy's America First goals. The lesson: tariffs meant to protect one industry can hurt another, forcing tough choices on jobs, products, and investments. For Ford, the policy designed to strengthen American manufacturing ended up weakening it, pushing the company to scale back U.S. plans and look overseas. It's a stark example of how global supply chains and trade policy are tightly linked. Even giants like Ford can be thrown off course by the ripple effects of tariffs. The result? Fewer choices for consumers, fewer jobs at home, and a more complicated path for American industry. The story of Ford is a warning. Economic actions have far-reaching reactions. Let's see how the next company fared. Next up is General Electric, a company woven into the fabric of American innovation. GE's global supply chains were hit hard by tariffs on steel, aluminum, and Chinese components. The result? Hundreds of millions in extra costs, especially for divisions like GE Aviation and Renewable Energy. Higher material prices made their products less competitive globally, threatening high-skill, high-wage American jobs. To cope, GE shifted more sourcing and assembly overseas, moving jobs and technical expertise out of the U.S. This didn't just affect GE workers. Thousands of smaller American suppliers lost business as GE reduced its domestic footprint. The company faced a tough choice: absorb massive costs or reconfigure operations abroad, both with painful consequences for U.S. jobs. Tariffs, meant as a simple barrier, sent shockwaves through GE's intricate supply network. The result was a strategic shift away from American manufacturing, undercutting the very goal of bringing jobs home. GE's story shows how tariffs can disrupt entire industries, not just companies. In a global economy, these policies force companies to reroute, reconfigure, and relocate. The unintended consequence? More American jobs and investment moving overseas. For GE, staying competitive meant moving more operations abroad. The lesson: in a globalized world, tariffs rarely have simple outcomes. Let's dig into our next case. Our third company, Caterpillar, is an icon of American heavy industry. As a massive steel consumer, Caterpillar was hit hard by tariffs, projecting up to $200 million in extra costs in just 6 months. Competing globally, every dollar added by tariffs made their machines less competitive against rivals like Komatsu and Volvo. The company's global supply chain relies on both domestic and foreign steel, so tariffs drove up costs across the board. To cope, Caterpillar raised prices, passing costs to customers and fueling inflation in construction and agriculture. But price hikes have limits. Eventually, customers look elsewhere. The long-term solution? Shift production to countries with lower steel costs. That's the painful irony. A policy meant to protect American industry pushed Caterpillar to consider moving jobs and investment overseas. The impact rippled through heartland communities, threatening local economies built around Caterpillar plants. Instead of boosting U.S. manufacturing, tariffs created higher costs, lost jobs, and a powerful incentive to move abroad. Caterpillar's experience is a case study in how trade policy can backfire on heavy industry. Let's see how the story played out in the American home. Our fourth case is Whirlpool, the world's largest home appliance maker. Whirlpool initially supported tariffs, hoping to stop foreign competitors from undercutting U.S. prices. When tariffs hit imported washing machines, Whirlpool celebrated and hired more workers in Ohio. At first it worked. Sales rose as imports became pricier. But then, steel and aluminum tariffs hit, raising Whirlpool's material costs and erasing the benefits of the earlier protection. The company had to raise appliance prices, so American consumers paid more, even as foreign competition was kept out. The real blow came from retaliatory tariffs. U.S. appliances sold abroad now faced new taxes in key markets like Canada and the EU. Whirlpool's U.S. factories became less competitive for exports, and the company reconsidered its global strategy. Instead of expanding U.S. production, Whirlpool found it made more sense to invest in overseas plants to serve foreign markets. The lesson: trade wars are unpredictable, and initial wins can quickly turn into losses. The very company that championed protectionism was forced to look abroad for growth. Tariffs meant to help ended up hurting, as costs rose and export markets shrank. Whirlpool's story is a warning. In a global economy, no business is an island. The crossfire of tariffs and retaliation can wipe out gains and push companies overseas. Let's ride into our final case, one that hits close to the American heart. Here's what happened to Harley-Davidson. Our final story is Harley-Davidson, a brand synonymous with American freedom. When the U.S. imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum, the EU retaliated, targeting Harley with a tariff jump from 6% to 31%. Europe is Harley's second-largest market, and the new tariffs added over $2,000 to each bike shipped from the U.S. Harley faced a stark choice: lose European sales or move production abroad. The company announced it would shift EU-bound motorcycle production from U.S. plants to facilities in Brazil, India, and Thailand. The backlash was fierce. Many saw it as a betrayal of American workers and identity. But for Harley, it was about survival in a trade war that made US-made bikes too expensive for Europe. The move meant fewer American jobs and less work for US factories. The EU's strategy was to inflict political pain by targeting an American icon, forcing a tough decision. Harley's story shows how trade wars can hit not just industries but cultural symbols. The casualties aren't just jobs and profits, they're pieces of national identity. In the end, Harley-Davidson was pushed to take a foreign road, not by choice, but by the logic of tariffs and retaliation. Let's wrap up with the big picture. So there you have it: Ford, GE, Caterpillar, Whirlpool, Harley-Davidson. 5 pillars of American industry, all pushed to look abroad by tariffs meant to protect them. The pattern is clear: higher costs, lost jobs, and investment moving overseas. Tariffs, intended as a shield, often became a sword, forcing tough decisions and strategic shifts. The debate isn't over, and the stakes are high for American workers. What do you think? Are tariffs helping or hurting? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep the conversation going.